Arise, ye starlings, from your slumber.
Sheridan split from the SSP and started his own socialist party. Solidarity was launched, and Sheridan's political talent ensured the party polled 3 times as many votes as the SSP in 2007. But the damage had been done. Neither party had any candidates elected. For the first time, there was not a socialist to be seen in Holyrood.
Some people said we killed the goose that laid the golden egg, that we destroyed our best asset, but what the alternative would have... we did do that, and it damaged us, but the alternative would have been much, much worse.
I learned George McNeilage sat beside Sheridan in form class at this secondary school in Cardonald. As adults, they were politically inseparable and good friends, even best men at each other's weddings. But as Sheridan moved up through the political ranks, George McNeilage, an activist in Pollock, became unsettled by his friend's behaviour.
He wasn't really about anymore, nor had he been. The big gala days where he was supposed to be comparing the event off the stage, and he would tell you he couldn't make it, and then the following day you would be told he was away with his newfound celebrity friends playing in a charity football match, and I don't think that was very nice, you know.
The seeds had been sown, and when George McNeilage first discovered that Sheridan had been to a swingers club, he was furious.
I got a chance to get a few kind of digs at him, how reckless he's been. I mean, he's stupid, you know, after everything we've done to build this movement up, and we're kind of leader acting like this and involved in this kind of reckless behaviour.
In November 2004, just as Sheridan was preparing to sue the News of the World, his old friend contemplated the ultimate betrayal.
It was pretty clear where he was going to go no matter what happened, and that was he was going to take libel action to shut them up, because he says to me the floodgates will open. And when I says to him, what do you mean the floodgates will open? He said, well, there'll be about other stories and stuff like that, and I just read that as he's been involved in a hell of a lot more than what I know about.
He says he secretly filmed this conversation. Sheridan's face can't be seen, but his voice seems to be heard, confessing all.
Done it once before in '86, we banned 2002, and cheap throw, but it's been done. That's it. At the time, it was a great idea, but I'm confident nothing will come back to it.
George McNeilage claims he sat on the tape for almost 2 years. But when Sheridan won his case and sold his story, everything changed.
And the front page headline made me feel physically sick. I'll destroy the scabs who tried to ruin me. And then when I opened it up with a double page spread, there's Rosie Kane, Caroline Leckie, Francis Kern and Colin Fox with a big massive picture with a big scab wrote across all their chests.
Do you regret calling your former colleagues scabs in the Daily Record?
I stick by the assessment of them as political scabs. Whether I should have said it to the Daily Record or not is another question. In retrospect, I probably should have just kept it for meetings.
Sheridan wanted revenge, but it was this decision that would set the course for his undoing.
So it was at that stage you decided to...
I decided to, because to me he took a blade and ripped it across the throat of a movement that I'd been involved in since I was 22.
Enraged at Sheridan's behaviour, George McNeilage called the News of the World.
Bob Bird came to the house, I just held up a sign for him. I obviously don't trust the News of the World. I've no time, I understand the kind of games that they get up to. So he immediately took his clothes off, into his boxer shorts. I made sure he didn't have any wires, nothing attached. And then I sat him down, I says to him, I've got a tape here I want to show you. And I sat down and I let Bob Bird watch the tape in his boxer shorts.
What was Bob Bird's reaction?
He was blew away. And he says, and what are you looking for this? And I says to him, I want what he thinks he's getting. And he says, 200 grand. No, he says to me, 200 grand. And I said, that's right. And I can remember him whistling. You know, wee whistle.
George McNeilage was given £200,000 for the tape. It was the biggest payout for a story the Scottish edition of the paper had ever given.
We paid for the tape to be analysed, and it was a lab run by a Professor French, who we were told by Scotland Yard and various other people who had that he was the sort of #1 expert in speech analysis, forensic speech analysis in the UK. He does work apparently for MI5, anti-terrorism stuff in Britain, and we paid his lab to analyse the tape for us against various specimens of Tommy Sheridan's voice taken off TV interviews, radio interviews, and they concluded that it was very likely, shall we say, that it was one and the same person.
The tape was published on their website. It appeared to prove all they had failed to prove in the defamation case, that Sheridan was a swinger, and that would mean he had lied in court.
A number of factors, I think, made it really important to investigate this and perhaps take it forward very thoroughly. First of all, you have a very high-profile politician, and politicians, I think, are in a particular situation in our society. We do expect very high standards from them. There were the observations from the trial judge, and following on that, there were statements coming in from private individuals.
Just a few days before Christmas in 2007, the Sheridan home was raided and Tommy was arrested.
A short statement to make. Mr. Sheridan has today been charged with perjury. He maintains his innocence and condemns the excessive actions of Lothian and Borders Police today.
The charges came after an 18-month inquiry involving more than 50,000 police hours. The bill to the taxpayer for the police investigation alone is well over £1 million. The police tapes show how during questioning Sheridan was cooperative, but he accused the police of being part of a conspiracy.
This inquiry from its outset has been a very biased inquiry, very politically directed inquiry, in that every single leak that has been printed about this inquiry has tried to implicate me, despite the fact that there was supposed to be an investigation into a trial. It's turned into an investigation into me rather than an investigation into a trial.
Based on legal advice from my senior counsel, Mr. Paul McBride, I intend to make no further comment. This is the legal advice I have.
Gail, on the other hand, exercised her right to silence.
Are you married, Mrs. Sheridan? Clearly we're aware that you're married, Mrs. Sheridan. These are basic questions, okay?
Gail, who's a Catholic, has her rosary beads removed from her during a break from questioning. And what comes next is totally unexpected.
Gail, I must ask you at this time, who has schooled you to make no or sit and focus on one point on the wall? Because I can tell you now, I've interviewed people who've been held under the Terrorism Act through a police station just on the road from yourself over a period of 7 days. And that is the kind of activity I would expect from them. It's a recognised PIRA, IRA, whatever form of terrorism technique. Focus at a spot on the wall, focus at the table, focus at the roof, focus at the bin, say nothing. Who's trained you in the technique?
In Sheridan's interview, detectives quiz him about a series of phone calls made the night before the alleged visit to Cupid's sex club. The calls are made to Gary Clark, Catherine Troll, Anne Cannon and Andy McFarlane in quick succession. All four were said to have accompanied him to the club.
Can you explain the reason for this sequence of calls?
Not at all. I phoned all of them bar Miss Cann on a semi-regular basis.
It's a pathetic piece of evidence to say, oh, you must have been at a swingers club because you phoned people the night before. Why not the night of it? Why not 2 days before it? Why not the week before? It's just pathetic.
Do you agree that for an elected politician whose reputation is built on integrity and honesty, that it's appropriate to launch an expensive investigation into allegations of perjury?
No, I don't think it's appropriate at all. There has been no perjury investigation into the Birmingham 6. No perjury investigation into Guildford 4. No perjury investigation into the Richard Johnson case. You've got a situation where there's a perjury investigation conducted into me for political reasons.
I just think that it's extremely unlikely in a country like Scotland where you would find the prosecution of an individual, such as Tommy Sheridan, driven by political considerations. And you'd have to, I think those who put forward that view, Tommy Sheridan himself included, would have to ask the question, what is the political advantage that you would gain from prosecuting Tommy Sheridan? And with all due respect to Mr. Sheridan, at this stage, he is not a significant political figure anymore. His political career is pretty well shot.
But Sheridan is not the first politician to find himself on the wrong side of a perjury charge. Tory peer Geoffrey Archer was awarded £500,000 in a libel action, but he'd lied about sleeping with a prostitute and was jailed for 4 years. Jonathan Aitken, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, also found out the hard way about the consequences of lying under oath. Now, older and wiser, Mr. Aitken has a unique insight into Tommy Sheridan's position.
I do have an intuitive, instinctive understanding because I have been where he now is, and parts of the road to self-destruction are probably quite similar. And you have to ask at various stages, why didn't I put the gear into reverse? And you'd have to ask, I guess, the same question to Tommy Sheridan. And I guess the answer is, I didn't go into reverse because I was too proud to do so.
In 1995, Jonathan Aitken was tipped as a future Prime Minister. But a newspaper expose labelled him a pimp, an arms dealer, and someone who'd enjoyed a £900 hotel stay at the expense of a Saudi businessman. He launched a libel action, but he knew he was lying about the hotel bill, which was paid for by a Saudi contact.
If it now falls to me to start a fight to cut out the cancer of bent and twisted journalism in our country with the simple sword of truth and the trusty shield of traditional British fair play, so be it.
Jim said, you get into a fight like this, and like many a fight, you sometimes think, well, the end justifies the means. And I think perhaps I made the huge mistake of saying, well, this is all part of the kind of the game of libel before it gets serious, and I'll win it before it gets serious. Well, how wrong I was.
Aitken was caught out and charged with perjury. He pleaded guilty, but not before considering all the options.
Perjury is a very difficult charge to prove. There was a sort of high-risk strategy, which I could have pleaded not guilty, fought the case, taken a gamble, and according to at least one of my lawyers, the chances of that success was quite high.
But for Tommy Sheridan, surrender is not in his vocabulary. So on October 5th, the perjury trial opens at the High Court in Glasgow. It promises to be the trial of the decade. More than 200 potential witnesses are listed.
It's been expensive, it's been time-consuming, but presumably at a certain point the decision was taken that notwithstanding all of those things, and notwithstanding of course the risk that you'd have one outcome rather than the other, you have to go ahead with a case of this kind.
Sheridan is charged with 2 counts of perjury, including allegations he lied in court about visits to Cupid's and the Moat House. And Gail Sheridan, 4 years ago she provided alibi evidence for her husband. Now she stands accused of lying about them in court. Behind the scenes, Tommy is offered a deal by prosecutors, plead guilty to one of the charges, and Gail walks free.
There have been offers on the table where the Crown has tried to say, look, your wife walks, all charges dropped, all you need to do is make an admission. I didn't want to put her through a trial where she was going to be under intense pressure. So did I ever think about putting my hand up for something I've not done? Yes, I did, in order to stop the trial. Until Gail told me that she would cut my effing tongue out if I did it.